circa 125, ecco, ora 125 società e rappresentanti di società. Mi fa molto piacere. Ascoltiamo quello che ci suggeriscono e cerchiamo tutti di partecipare a questi tender. Grazie per la vostra attenzione.
Grazie mille a Roberto Carpaneto, vicepresidente dell'OICE. Adesso passiamo a Simone Martelli, che è l'advisor, chiedo scusa, c'è qualcuno, microfono acceso, che è l'advisor al direttore esecutivo della Constituency italiana presso la African Development Bank. Simone Martelli è basato normalmente, credo anche adesso, ad Abidjan, e ci illustrerà anche quelle che sono le performance delle imprese italiane nell'ambito delle attività della Banca Africana di Sviluppo. Ha preparato un interessante rapporto che verrà poi distribuito con tutto il materiale alla fine di questo webinar. Prego, Simone Martelli.
Grazie mille. E, insomma, piacere di essere presente oggi. Indubbiamente faccio i miei complimenti all'ICE e all'OICE per aver organizzato questo seminario dedicato a conoscere meglio le opportunità della Banca Africana di Sviluppo e ringrazio anche Ashraf da parte della banca per partecipare. La banca, il gruppo Banca Africana di Sviluppo, indubbiamente, come è stato detto, offre diverse opportunità alle imprese italiane. La banca il gruppo Banca Africana di Sviluppo è uno dei principali finanziatori di progetti di investimento nel continente africano insieme alla Banca Mondiale. Negli ultimi 3 anni ha finanziato progetti in media per 7,3 miliardi di dollari e i recenti aumenti di capitale della Banca Africana di Sviluppo e il rifinanziamento del Fondo Africano di Sviluppo confermano il ruolo di primo piano che questa organizzazione continuerà ad avere nel prossimo decennio. Il capitale della banca infatti arriverà a raddoppiare nell'arco di 10 anni e con esso ovviamente i finanziamenti che erogherà. Sono infatti 2 i principali modi per lavorare con la Banca Africana di Sviluppo. La banca infatti finanzia progetti di tipo settore pubblico o progetti direttamente con il settore privato. Da un lato appunto i progetti del settore pubblico, che sono quindi finanziamenti agli stati per realizzare progetti di investimento, sono quelli che poi danno origine a contratti a gare d'appalto e quindi ai contratti di procurement, ma dall'altro lato non va dimenticato la forse prima opportunità che la banca offre, che è quella di finanziare direttamente progetti di investimento promossi e sponsorizzati da imprese private nel continente e di cui ovviamente imprese o gruppi di imprese a cui ovviamente le società di ingegneria, qual è l'oggetto del seminario di oggi, possono contribuire insieme ad altre. Fatemi citare un evento, quindi una terza iniziativa che la banca ha organizzato da 2 anni e che raccoglie un grande apprezzamento, che è l'African Investment Forum. Sostanzialmente un'occasione, soprattutto pre-Covid, ovviamente col Covid ci sono più incertezze sulla possibilità di organizzarlo fisicamente, però appunto appena si potrà ricomincerà sicuramente in piena forza. Questo evento che raccoglie e mette in contatto le opportunità di investimento, i progetti di investimento sul continente con possibili realizzatori da un lato e finanziatori dall'altro. È una grande iniziativa, che è un'iniziativa appunto di grandi dimensioni, lanciata dall'attuale presidente della banca e che effettivamente ha sempre raccolto, per quello che è la mia esperienza, grande apprezzamento da parte di chi vi ha partecipato. Quindi fatemi presentare brevemente qual è il mio ruolo o appunto quello della mia figura all'interno della banca e per vedere successivamente brevemente i settori strategici in cui la banca opera e un focus sul procurement, come preannunciato. Come si diceva appunto, il mio è il ruolo di chi lavora all'interno del consiglio di amministrazione di un'organizzazione e quindi il ruolo è quello di oversight da un lato e di discussione delle strategie della banca dall'altro, portando la visione dell'Italia. Non faccio quindi parte dei team che preparano direttamente i progetti o li valutano, ma ovviamente sono disponibile per supportare le interazioni con la banca delle imprese italiane se necessario e facilitare i contratti. Però appunto ovviamente il ruolo è quello di rappresentare, diciamo, di sostenere insieme a tutti gli altri paesi che fanno parte che sono membri della Banca Africana di Sviluppo, e sono tutti i paesi africani, oltre ai paesi sviluppati e ai paesi emergenti, quindi inclusi Cina, Brasile, India. Appunto sono tutti i rappresentanti di questi paesi, contribuiscono diciamo, all'indirizzo strategico che la banca adotterà nei prossimi anni. Come dicevo, quindi, quali settori strategici e quali appunto le prospettive da parte della banca di finanziamento. Per la sola Banca Africana di Sviluppo, come dicevamo prima, ad oggi, pre-Covid, l'ammontare di progetti finanziati era intorno ai 7 miliardi di dollari, la previsione di aumento di finanziamenti grazie all'aumento di capitale dovrebbe arrivare a 11 miliardi di finanziamenti al 2030. Ovviamente questo da leggere in questo periodo in controluce alla crisi sanitaria ed economica che stiamo tutti vivendo, quindi già quest'anno purtroppo si è visto una riduzione di 1/3 delle operazioni della banca a causa dei limiti appunto delle risorse disponibili all'interno della banca, e si prevede l'anno prossimo, ma questo appunto è molto in discussione, però appunto si prevede una riduzione del target di finanziamenti del 20%. L'idea ovviamente è che insomma, la crisi è temporanea, che si supererà, e diciamo, gli indirizzi previsti al momento dell'aumento di capitale, che era a fine 2019, cioè ci sarà un riallineamento nell'arco di 10 anni appunto agli indirizzi originali. Questi li potete trovare nella nota che è stata preannunciata. Dal punto di vista settoriale, la banca lavora secondo un principio di selettività, perché ovviamente, come tutti, ha risorse umane e finanziarie limitate, seppur cospicue, e quindi per non disperdere le proprie risorse si focalizza sul settore dell'energia e dell'agricoltura, nei quali è previsto un triplicamento dei finanziamenti nell'arco di 10 anni. È attiva nel settore dei trasporti e della gestione del trattamento delle acque, i cui finanziamenti anche questi aumenteranno più o meno del 50%, si prevede in modo appunto molto generico nell'arco di 10 anni. Un altro settore, diciamo, più ampio in cui la banca opera è quello dell'industrializzazione, ovvero lo sviluppo di catene di valore e del settore industriale in Africa, e quindi apre la porta, pur se non come primo settore strategico, però tutta un'altra serie di ambiti di investimenti pur di interesse da parte della banca. Giusto citare, data appunto l'emergenza sanitaria che stiamo vivendo, il settore della salute, che ad oggi è escluso dalle operazioni della banca perché appunto per il criterio di selettività, ma discussioni sono in corso con cautela per un'apertura verso quelle che non sono ancora state meglio definite come infrastrutture sanitarie di qualità. Per ora c'è molta cautela ad aprirsi a nuovi settori, dato che appunto questo rischia di aumentare la frammentazione dei settori in cui la banca opera, però ciononostante discussioni sono in corso ed è giusto riconoscerle. Esistono priorità trasversali, cioè che dovrebbero rimanere valide un po' per tutti i progetti di investimento, che sono appunto l'attenzione ai paesi fragili, in particolare il clima, le pari opportunità, i giovani e le opportunità di occupazione, e la governance in generale, quindi l'assistenza tecnica ai paesi africani. Passando quindi al lato del procurement, alla nota che è stata citata, come dicevo, questo è un sottoinsieme, ed è un sottoinsieme molto interessante sicuramente per le imprese italiane per operare con la banca o per affacciarsi al continente africano, ma è uno dei settori, cioè che riguarda la realizzazione di progetti che sono già stati, diciamo, pensati e preparati prevalentemente da parte dei governi africani, e quindi finanziati da parte della banca. In questo ambito, in questo ambito l'Italia ha una performance relativamente modesta, nel senso che i contratti di procurement, la maggioranza dei contratti di procurement sono per lavori, quindi realizzazione di opere, e in questi la Cina raccoglie la stragrande maggioranza delle gare d'appalto per tutti i motivi che possiamo conoscere o immaginare, ed è ancora invece assente nel settore dei servizi e delle consulenze anche di tipo ingegneristico. Quindi, tolto, come vedete dal grafico condiviso, tolta la parte della Cina, che è indubbiamente importante, se si confronta l'Italia con gli altri paesi del G7, quindi con le altre economie più avanzate, effettivamente si vede che il nostro paese fa peggio significativamente peggio della Francia, però si colloca a livello della Germania e del Regno Unito per i servizi, e anche meglio del Giappone e degli Stati Uniti. Quindi questa è dimostrazione del fatto che in fondo non facciamo così male. Indubbiamente, se uno guarda i dati si vede che le opportunità ci sono, e per l'Italia le opportunità ci sono sia nella realizzazione di opere civili, sia appunto nella realizzazione nelle consulenze, quindi nei servizi. Ma appunto, come si diceva prima, si può fare di più. Dall'altro lato interessante è, pur con alcuni caveat, la quota di contratti che vengono vinti dalle imprese basate in Africa. Questo è quasi corrisponde, appunto, i contratti di procurement vinti da società basate in Africa raggiungono quasi il 50% del totale del procurement. È bene tenere a mente però che appunto il sistema di classificazione della banca si basa sulla nazionalità delle imprese che presentano le offerte e non ricostruisce, diciamo, la catena di controllo a monte. Quindi è credibile, cioè è probabile che parte di questi contratti in realtà si riferiscono a filiali locali di imprese estere rispetto appunto all'Africa. Ciononostante, come vedremo più avanti anche dal punto di vista della dimensione dei progetti, secondo me è un interessante approccio per vedere come le imprese italiane possono, quelle di più grosse dimensioni, più strutturate, a mio avviso, possono partecipare direttamente alle gare d'appalto della banca, ma dall'altro lato è bene tenere in considerazione anche opportunità di partnership con imprese locali. Partnership che sono, penso, ovviamente benefiche dal punto di vista industriale appunto italiano, ma in realtà sono molto ben allineate con quella che è un'ottica dell'internazionalizzazione, di una cooperazione volta a creare relazioni stabili nel continente, e quindi collaborazioni di lunga durata, che in ultima analisi sono quell'elemento che che è win-win, che porta allo scambio di conoscenze verso le imprese africane, ma anche verso le imprese italiane, e permette appunto di consolidare una presenza e relazioni nel continente. Aggiungerei forse un'analisi geografica che potete trovare sempre nella nota che ho preparato guardando ai dati della banca, che riguarda la localizzazione geografica dei principali contratti di procurement. Nell'arco dell'ultimo quinquennio i contratti di procurement sono stati nel totale, appunto nel quinquennio, il valore complessivo è stato superiore a $1 milione in Marocco e in Kenya, e sono stati compresi, il valore complessivo sempre, fra 1 miliardo, scusate, ovviamente, invece fra 500 milioni e 1 miliardo in Tanzania, Senegal e Uganda, che sono quindi i 5 paesi, Marocco, Kenya, Tanzania, Senegal e Uganda, sono i 5 paesi in cui si concentrano la maggior parte dei contratti di procurement su gare internazionali realizzate dalla banca. Questo non per dire che debbano essere gli unici paesi di interesse, ma insomma degni di attenzione, diciamo. Dall'altro lato, accennavo prima, forse è giusto fare un piccolo cenno alla dimensione dei contratti. I contratti di lavoro, come facilmente per realizzazione di opere civili, come facilmente immaginabili, sono tendenzialmente di grosse dimensioni, cioè la maggioranza dei contratti vanno da 1 milione a 100 milioni, con qualche contratto fra i 100 e i 200 milioni di dollari, il singolo contratto, mentre per i contratti di servizi la maggioranza del valore si colloca in una fascia più intermedia o media, cioè media o più piccola, quindi in una fascia che va dai 100 ai 500 milioni il singolo contratto, fra i 500 milioni e fra i 100 e i 500 mila dollari, o fra i 500 mila dollari e i 10 milioni, la dimensione del singolo contratto. Anche questo quindi a voler mostrare che le opportunità sono un po' per tutte le dimensioni e per tutte le tasche, verrebbe da dire, e l'Italia in effetti, se uno guarda appunto alla distribuzione del procurement dell'Italia, effettivamente l'Italia raccoglie contratti un po' in tutte queste fasce, non sia per lavori, riesce a raccogliere contratti anche di grosse dimensioni, ma appunto anche nei servizi riesce a spaziare da contratti di medie dimensioni a contratti di più grandi dimensioni. Come è stato detto, appunto, questa analisi e appunto maggiori dettagli verranno distribuiti insieme al materiale che verrà messo a disposizione ai partecipanti. Desidero solo appunto ricordare in conclusione quello che è ancora una volta quello che è il mio ruolo, che è qui, che è diciamo, sicuramente offrire un supporto, un aiuto alle imprese, cioè offrire, sicuramente c'è la mia disponibilità per scambiare informazioni con le imprese italiane, e questo capita di tanto in tanto, che desiderano interagire con la Banca Africana di Sviluppo, ma sempre ricordando che è compito del management della banca ed è loro responsabilità e competenza fare la valutazione, da un lato, sia delle eventuali richieste di finanziamento per realizzazione di progetti in Africa, o dall'altro lato è competenza prevalentemente dei paesi beneficiari svolgere le gare d'appalto, e quindi selezionare i vincitori appunto delle gare d'appalto per la realizzazione dei progetti, che seguono, cioè, nonostante standard che sono internazionali e di trasparenza, che sono definiti e monitorati dal management della banca. E con questo quindi vi auguro un buon proseguimento dei lavori.
Grazie mille, grazie a Simone Martelli. Abbiamo ricevuto molte domande. Il paper a cui si riferiva Simone Martelli verrà distribuito tra oggi pomeriggio e domani mattina con tutti gli atti del seminario. Adesso è il momento della presentazione, diciamo, del procurement. Abbiamo Ashraf Ayad, che è Lead Procurement Officer dell'African Development Bank. La sua presentazione sarà divisa, come accennavo prima, in una parte, molti di voi già operano con le banche, molti di voi hanno già lavorato con l'African Development Bank e con altre banche multilaterali di sviluppo. Ashraf ci pregava di lasciare abbastanza tempo per delle question and answer, quindi dopo questa mezz'ora di presentazione, per piacere iniziate a inviare le vostre domande. Risponderemo a stretto giro subito dopo la sua presentazione. Ashraf, I just introduced your title and role. Please, the screen is all yours. You can start whenever you want.
Well, thank you so much, Bernard. I don't know if you can see my screen. I've just shared it.
Yes, it's very visible.
Great. Well, good morning and buongiorno to all the participants. Let me start by saying that I'm very pleased and to be speaking here on behalf of the bank and presenting some information concerning the bank's procurement. I also would like to thank the Italian government, the ITA, the OICE, all the organizations that have made it possible for this event to happen, and also for inviting us to be able to meet with Italian companies. I would like also to, of course, thank all the participants. I can see a large number of participants in this forum, which I believe just reflects, the interest of Italian companies in working with the African Development Bank, in working in Africa, and this is something that we are honored to see. And I just want to confirm that Italy is a very important country, one of the very important shareholders of the African Development Bank Group, and we are really pleased to have this opportunity to be speaking to Italian companies. I apologize, my presentation and my intervention is in English. Maybe, Italian is a very nice language that I really would like to learn. Maybe next time I'll be able to say a few words in Italian, but for the time being, I will just be doing that in English. I have a 1 hour slot, and I will try to make my presentation shorter, maybe about 30-35 minutes, just to allow time for all the participants to ask whatever questions they have, and I'll be responding to those questions at the end. So please feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask as the presentation is ongoing. Just a quick introduction to the African Development Bank Group. I know that most of this information may have already been sent by the previous presenters. It's a group. What you need to know, I mean, it's more than one entity. It's an African Development Bank, African Development Fund, and Nigeria Trust Fund. These are the three main entities that constitute the African Development Bank. Why is it important? You will know because this also has an impact on procurement as far as eligibility is concerned. So in a few slides, you will know that you will have to be aware from which of these entities the financing of the African Development Bank in a project that you are involved in, you have to know where it's coming from. The African Development Bank is the non-concessional window of the bank. This is basically where we finance middle-income countries in Africa, like countries in North Africa, like South Africa, and so on. While the African Development Fund, in fact, is the concessional window of the bank, where there we issue loans and grants, but the loans are mostly very concessional. It can be always concerned also as grant, and this goes to the countries that are more poor in Africa. The bank currently is trying to implement its 2013-2022 strategy, which is based on two main objectives the bank's trying to achieve, which is basically inclusive growth and the transition to green growth. How we can do that, basically, this is based on 5 operational priorities, which is the infrastructure development. You will see from and you have seen in the previous intervention by Simone, the level or the percentage of infrastructure in our portfolio. Also by regional economic integration, we put a lot of emphasis on the private sector now, governance and accountability, and of course, skills and technology. All these objectives or these priorities has been, in fact, set up by the president of the bank in what we call the high fives. This is the main overarching objectives of the bank, which are the light up and power Africa, feed Africa, industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of the life of people in Africa. You will find that all bank operations are taking place within this framework of those 5 main development priorities. The bank is a fully decentralized institution, and this is also important for you to know. We have now currently about 37 representations, and we have 5 regional centers in Tunisia, Kenya, in Ivory Coast, in Cameroon, and in South Africa. So please be assured, if you are involved in a project or bidding for a project in any country in Africa, you will find that as far as the procurement department is concerned, we are also fully decentralized. So there is a procurement officer that is responsible for this, for the country. And if he's not based in the country, he is responsible or based in, because of the bank doesn't have an office, you'll find him that he's responsible and based in a neighboring country. This I've already covered. I think the AFDB portfolio already been discussed by Simone. I don't want to repeat that. This is where is really important. I think it was mentioned in a previous presentation, the size of the bank's lending, which is about $7 to $8 billion every year. But how much of that is in fact translated into contracts that the bank is financing every year? So you will find that under international competitive bidding, our international tenders, the bank is financing between $2.5 to $3 billion worth of contracts every year on average. That of course varies, in that. And at same when it comes to numbers. So there is about between 2,600 to 3,000 contracts every year that the bank is financing. So this is in fact is the size of the opportunity that you have when you are bidding in, or you are trying to bid in the AFDB or the bank's contracts. In terms of value, I said this between 2.5 and 3 billion. But let me stress again that this is only the international competitive bidding in the public sector projects, the sovereign projects. Now, what is not included on this chart is our intervention, or what the contracts that we finance from under our private sector window, and also the contracts that are bidded on national basis, so what we call the national competitive bidding contracts. So those figures, in fact, these figures that you see, you can easily add, estimated about $1 more billion that can be added to that. So in total, the bank will be financing contracts anywhere between 3.5 to 4 billion. Unfortunately, our system does not capture this information in detail now, but we are working on making sure that we get all the information as accurate as possible. In terms of the number of contracts, by category, you will find that works contracts is close to 1,000 every year, and you will find that both goods and consulting services contract are in between, anywhere between 500 and 1,000 contracts every year. So again, this just to give you a flavor of the size of opportunity that you have when being interested in AFDB work. This is information about contracts awarded to Italian companies. This has also been covered, and the countries and the sectors. But maybe the only comment that I can say here is that surely there is a room for improvement and a room for increase by Italian companies to win more and more contracts from the bank. Just to give you also an idea, how do we identify our projects and how does it work? The bank, of course, is in continuous dialogue with the countries, our countries of operations, basically all African countries. And based on this, we do recognize, or we do identify together with the countries their priorities. And from there, through this, what we call the policy dialogue, and where the sectors that the bank is interested in being, in taking part in, then it is decided between both the bank and the country where the bank should be involved. Once a project is identified, very quickly, you need to understand that a project passes through a preparation stage, then a more appraisal stage where more kind of studies of the project is being done. Then once the bank and the country agree on the project, its scope, its objectives, and so on, then a negotiation phase takes place. Once this is done, it goes to the board for approval. And then once the loan becomes effective, then procurement will start. So it is important for you to know, if you are following up or interested in a particular project, a particular country, through the publications that I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation, is to know on which phase of this cycle the project is, just to get the feel also on when is it likely to, the opportunities under this project to be advertised. One important aspect also to make very clear is that the bank does not do procurement itself. Yes, the bank does procurement under its corporate procurement side, but this is not the subject of that presentation. But if we talk about the procurement under projects, the procurement under projects is basically there is full responsibility of the borrowers or the beneficiaries of the bank financing. So we as a bank will sign a financing agreement with our borrowers, and the borrowers will have the responsibility to advertise the tenders, to evaluate the bids, to sign the contracts with contractors, suppliers, and consultants, and so on. The bank has a responsibility, though, of what we call the fiduciary oversight. So the bank has to make sure that what the borrower is doing is in fact done as per the agreed financing agreement and within the framework of the bank's rules and procedures and standards and so on. So at every step of the way, every step of the procurement process, the borrowers will need to go back to the bank as a financiers, and they will need to get a clearance, or what we call a no objection, from the bank in order for them to pass to the next step. Again, this does not mean that the bank does not have a relationship with the bidders, with contractors, suppliers, and consultants. No, we do. First of all, when we do our procurement policies, when we formulate our bidding documents, all this, we are in continuous dialogue with the representatives of the different industries. So you will find that we have regular meetings with FIDIC, that represents the engineering industry, with SICA and European International Contracting Associations. All those entities, we are in continuous dialogue with them, and we share and consult with them on our types of contracts, on our contract conditions, on the bidding document conditions. Time like where we are now with the COVID-19, there's a lot of complaints and a lot of concerns by especially contractors and so on, and this gets all addressed through these representatives of the industries that we are in dialogue with. A forum like where we are now, what we call an opportunity, a business opportunity webinar, or this kind of event is also one form of interaction between the bank and the bidders. Also, more importantly, payments. We can pay the bidders directly. We can pay contractors, suppliers, consultants. So if you are working with the African Development Bank or World Bank, I think you'll be familiar with that. But if you are thinking to start to work with the bank in Africa, so please be assured that on projects and large contracts, the bank pays the contractor directly based on a request by the government. Also, complaints is one of the forms of interaction between us and the bidders community. If there have any grievances, if you feel that something is not happening as per the rules, you can submit complaints to the bank directly. More importantly, also, is that the bank has what we call the right to audit. This is a provision in all banks' standard contracts, whereby it opens the door for the bank to review and audit project accounts of the bidder related to this particular procurement process. The reason is doing that, this is basically the clause that opens the door for the bank to do investigations and so on. Now, I said in the beginning that you need to understand where the financing is coming from, which entity under the bank's group. Is it the ADB, the African Development Bank, or the Nigeria Trust Fund, or the African Development Fund? The reason being is that the African Development Bank and the Nigeria Trust Fund, the procurement done that is financed from those two windows is only open for bidders from member countries of the bank. So, of course, Italy is a member of all this, but if you are participating in a tender under the ADB or NTF financing, and you want to choose a sub-consultant or a subcontractor, or to see from where to get or source the goods that you want to supply, you have to make sure that this is coming from another member country of the bank or from Italy itself. But if it is the African Development Fund, then universal procurement applies. So you can appoint, or recruit whichever subcontractor you want. You can supply goods from anywhere in the world. So that's why it's important to understand these eligibility conditions. So basically, the role of the bank as far as the procurement is concerned, so we are the ones who will publish the advertisements, and I'll show you where you can find these adverts towards the end of my presentation. As I said, we clear or issue no objections to all documents by the borrowers at each stage of the procurement process. We ensure, of course, independent review of all complaints. Once a complaint is received, the borrower, even if it's received by the borrower itself, they have to inform us that the complaint has been received, and we are monitoring how are they responding to the complaint. And if the bidder is still not happy with the response by the borrower, the bank intervenes and make its decision. We also have a whistleblowing mechanism whereby anyone who sees anything that is inappropriate related to any bank activity in any country can just use this mechanism, and it's anonymous. Also, we investigate cases related to any wrongdoings, any sanctionable practice, and we make sure that we have a systematic internal and external audits. All bank projects are financially and from procurement-wise also audited. So this is the second part of my presentation on the banks. Just a quick introduction, just to give you the flavor of the bank's procurement framework. So the procurement framework of the bank is basically, this is the link where you can find it on our website. There has been lately some reorganization of our website, especially when it comes to procurement. So if you are used to go or accustomed to visit the website, please use this link now to reach the procurement documents. Procurement framework is basically 4 documents, what we call a procurement policy, procurement methodology, and then an operations procurement manual and a procurement toolkit. The policy is important for you to be familiar with. It's a small document, about 25 pages or 30 pages, where it's just a principles-based policy. It explains the general consideration that the bank is taking into account, its procurement principles, and so on when it comes to doing procurement. So that is important for any bidder that wants to work with the bank to read this document carefully and be aware what the bank is trying to do. The methodology of procurement is a document that is mainly directed to bank staff, so it doesn't concern really the bidders too much, though it is there. It basically explains how do we implement our procurement philosophy that is explained in the policy. Also, what is important for bidders is this procurement manual. It is it's really a large document in 4 volumes. And 2 parts and so on. This is really the nitty-gritty of everything that is related to the procurement the bank is does, procurement rules. So my advice, if you are participating in a process, for example, that is for what we call open competitive bidding international, so in other words, international competitive bidding, you can go to this particular volume that discusses this. Just read the few pages on this process so that you are aware what is your rights, and how the process should have been conducted. So in case that the borrower is not following that, you can raise this and bring this to the attention of the bank. Finally, we have our what we call our procurement toolkit, which includes basically all the tools, the bidding documents, the standard bidding documents, the guidance notes, case studies. And this is a live electronic repository that we keep on adding and removing documents from. It's nice to be familiar with as well. Quickly to explain how we design procurement arrangements on the project, how do we get to say that this particular process should follow international bidding or national bidding? It should be done by the bank's method, it should be done by the public procurement law in the country. This is all based on assessment. So we do assessments at the level of the country, at the level of the sector, at the level of the project, and we do analyze the public procurement system. As a development bank, we have an obligation to build the country systems. We have this commitment, and so as much as possible, we try to under our current framework to first assess which interventions or which transactions under a project can be done through the public procurement systems in the country, based of course on what we find in that system based on our assessment. So if the system is reasonably good and we have some maybe small value contracts that is done under the project, then maybe we will push those to be done under the public procurement system in the country in order for us to, we call it the building by using approach, in order for us to understand where are the shortfalls more and where is the issues with practices, with the law and so on. And then we engage the countries in reform programs in order for them to bring those systems to international standards. This is basically, but usually the larger contracts that you will be interested in as international bidders will be done as per the bank's procurement methods and procedures and the bank's standard bidding documents. In some cases, we are co-financing projects, so you will find that we may rely on the World Bank for them to use their procurement guidelines, or they will rely on us in projects that they finance for us to use our procurement guidelines based on what we call mutual reliance agreements that we sign with them, and also with the United Nations. So the bank has agreements with the World Bank, with the European Investment Bank, with the EBRD. All these entities, we can rely on them or they rely on us in cases of co-financing. The bank's framework basically aims to achieve value for money. As I mentioned, that we want to build the local industries. As a development bank, we have this obligation, and we also want to build the procurement systems in the country. We have provisioned this framework to handle working in Africa, where about 30 to 40% of countries are suffering from fragility. So we have some provisions on how to handle these situations. We encourage a lot electronic procurement, and we have a wide agenda of engagement with different African countries, and we're now helping them to build their electronic procurement system. We have a very robust system also to handle complaints. This framework also introduces what we call environmentally and socially responsible procurement, which is basically the sustainable procurement provisions. In other words, for larger contracts now, we may consider, awarding the contract based on not only on the lowest price, but on the life cycle cost that we take into consideration. We calculate that, and a contract is awarded based on that. We try to enhance transparency as much as possible. So this also framework put a lot of emphasis on beneficial ownership, whereby in some contracts, the winning bidder will have to declare who is the beneficial owners of his company is. And we put a lot of also emphasis on contract monitoring and contract management. A lot of feedback that we get from you as bidders is that you suffer from the capacity of the executing agencies on the ground. If they are not properly qualified to deal with some procurement processes or to manage contracts, this of course affects the bidders in many ways, and this is a kind of a constant feedback information that we get. So now when we try to, before approving financing, we engage the executing agency, we assess their capacity as part of assessing the procurement risk under the project, and we take some mitigating measures in case this is required. Procurement methods, I think you are familiar with that, but just to emphasize that for goods and works is still based on open competition. It can be national or international. We've introduced the negotiated procedures under our framework that I'm explaining, which is like competitive dialogue. We have some restrictive methods like shopping and non-competitive bidding like direct contracting. But if you take the bank amongst all the other MDBs, you will find that the percentage of direct contracting contracts under our procurement portfolio is the lowest amongst MDBs. So rest assured that all our opportunities are advertised, all our bidding and processes and opportunities are based on a competitive approach. Now, when it comes to consulting services, again, it's based on shortlisting, but after an expression of interest is also advertised on the bank's website. Of course, it's based on the terms of reference. Price can be a minor factor or no factor when it comes to consulting services. When we do our quality-based selection processes, then we don't take price into consideration. Negotiation is a usual issue of or usual activity under our consultant services, and also it's a two-envelope system, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. The bank does not only finance the public sector operations, but we also finance a private sector from our private sector window. So you may be interested today to win a contract under the bank's procurement. It can be under a public sector project, can be under a private sector project, or you may also be interested to approach the bank for financing. Either you would like to receive financing directly from the bank, or either it can be with agreement with the government in a kind of public-private partnership arrangement. This all is possible under the bank's current financing instruments. But when it comes to procurement and the private sector, of course, there the client is different. It's a profit-making organization. Efficiency is very important. Also, economy, we put a lot of emphasis on the final price, but there we will not force companies that approach the bank from the private sector window to use our standard bidding documents, of course. They don't need also to come to us at every stage of the procurement process. No, we will assess the procurement that is done by that specific company. If it's acceptable to us, we'll allow them to use what they usually use what we call the accepted commercial practices. We make sure just that it's conforming with a procurement plan that we agree upon. We will usually do what we call a post review. In other words, the procurement process can be done, the contract can be signed, and we will come at the end to review the process and make sure that it is done in a manner that is acceptable to the bank. This part of my presentation, maybe this will be the most interesting to you. I put there some important information and some links that you may find interesting to identify opportunities under the bank financing. So first, there is the Map Africa. Map Africa the link is there, but you can even access it from the main web page of the bank, the first page on the website, the homepage. Each of these dots, in fact, represents a project that the bank is involved in. And they are also classified by the high-five priorities that I've mentioned earlier in my presentation. So just by looking at this map, you'll be able to see which sector, where is the project taking place, some information on the project and so on. And I find this to be quite useful. There's also a lot of, if you want some information on the different countries while doing market research or so on, then we have also our data portal. You can access it from there, has detailed information on all African countries. Now, if you're trying to identify future opportunities and where the bank is going to be involved next, I really encourage you to access what we call the quarterly operations summary. It's a publication that we do every 3 months. In fact, the last version is not the April one that you can see on the screen, but is one that was published at the end of October, so it's quite recent. In this publication, you will find the projects that was approved by the bank's board over the past 6 months, and as well as the projects that are in the pipeline over the following 6 months from the date of publication. And there we try to include as much as possible information as it is available in the bank. So we will include what is the project. We will also include which is the executing entity. And if there is a procurement plan, we'll put a link to the procurement plan also. So just by accessing this, just by knowing that the bank is considering to finance a project, or in fact has just approved the financing of a project, you know which one is the executing agencies. You can just contact them and establish this link from the start and try to ask them what is the procurement packages that will be coming, when are they going to be advertised, and make this follow-up, express interest in particular packages that you would like to be informed. In fact, engaging them quite early is the whole purpose of that publication. Of course, if you want to know a little bit about procurement statistics, you will find it under this link. The bank's policies and standard documents have already included that. What is more important here is, the bank's adverts. So we have two types of adverts, what we call the general procurement notice and the specific procurement notice. The general procurement notice is an advert that is published as soon as the bank's board approves the financing. So this will be published. It's published only once for each approved project by the bank's board. And there you will find information about the project as it's, you can see it here. And you will also find, what are the different specialities that are required under the project, what are the probable procurement packages, and more importantly, here you will also find who is going to implement the project, the executing agency. Many bidders, they take this information, they contact the executing agency, and they start engaging with them to get more realistic, because this, at the time it is published, is basically a plan. So you will need to know if you are interested in a particular contract that may come up under this project, then it's good to get the information directly from the executing agency to be able to know when is it going, that particular contract or particular opportunity will be advertised. The second type of advert is what we call the specific procurement notice, which is basically the notice that is advertised for you to, in relation to a particular procurement process. If you go to the bank's website, these are the links. You can set up alerts there. for a particular project, for a particular sector, and you can be alerted by email, by different types of communication methods for you to be able to make the necessary follow-up. But if you would like, my advice is, once you know the executing agency, contact them and make sure to establish this link and make sure to get the information firsthand without even waiting for the bank to advertise. So all banks' opportunities are published on the website, but they're also published in the UNDP journal, and this is the link. So it's the same. You go to the bank's website or the UNDP journal, you'll find the same information. Now, when it comes to goods and works, I mean, I think this information is maybe known to you all, but just as a reminder, the common reasons that we see for bids being rejected, for example, we see a lot of problems with bid securities. Either there's no bid security if it's required, or either that is submitted but with not the right information. We have formats in the bidding documents, our standard bidding documents, on how the bid security should look like. It's a very strict format in terms of wording, if it's a bank guarantee or so on. So you need to please make sure that you have the right validity, the right dates, the right wording. Sometimes commercial banks, when you go to them, they refuse to use this format. You have to insist on it. Sometimes they make some changes, in the format, even without you realizing it, and this may cause some problems. The bank looks for and pushes the borrower only to accept unconditional bid securities, unconditional performance guarantees later on. Has to be completely unconditional with the right validity, and all these dates has to be accurate. Also, do not submit a conditional bid. In other words, if a bid is requested or issued where you are allowed to maybe provide some technical alternatives, it will be clearly indicated in the bidding document. But don't take the initiative to offer alternatives when it has not been allowed for by the bidding document. Also, please don't put a bid. The bid has to be completely unconditional. So you cannot say to us or to the borrower that my bid is valid if 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, if I receive the site by this date, or if I, receive, I don't know, the 10% advance payment is not enough, I have to receive 20. Any condition from your side is considered conditional bid and immediately is rejected. We need to see all supporting documents that support any information that is included in the bid. Lack of supporting documents, if the documents are critical, may lead to rejection. If not, we may ask for them, but still, please make sure to submit complete bids in terms of if there is a certain number of items where you're required to bid for all the items, then please make sure that you put prices for all items. Please make sure that the bids are signed and that any conflict of interest has to be disclosed. If it's not disclosed, it's then come to be known afterwards. It causes problems to the bidders. In case of consulting services, the major non-compliance issues that we usually see, again, conflict of interest issues, eligibility, that firms or any of its associates is not organized in a member country of the bank. Just remember, if it's an ADB, NTF finance project, it has every bank, the whole team, the whole key experts that are offered by a consulting firm has to come from member countries of the bank. The technical proposal sometimes includes some cost elements, especially under the quality and cost-based selection process. Please make sure that your technical proposal does not have any cost elements, because this is an immediate cause for rejecting the bids. Sometimes we find, and strangely enough, that employees from executing agencies are included as key experts in a consultant's proposal. Of course, this is not allowed except under specific conditions. Missing information like missing CVs or so on, this affects the technical score of it. If I don't see the expert and I don't see what is his qualifications, I cannot score him, I cannot rate him. So you have to give me the information to help us do scores. Sometimes we see discrepancies between the required effort from the company in terms of person months in the RFP and the proposed person months. This causes also considered as a non-compliance issue. Between the type of experts proposed and what we are asking for, please make sure that you submit a proposal that is accurate. It has the really the experts and the team that is proposed that really relates to the assignment in question, or when again similar to conditional bids in this goods and works situation you find here, also proposals that make radical changes to the TOR. And this is of course also is not allowed. When we explain or when the TOR is cleared by the bank, it means that it reflects accurately the requirements of the borrower and achieves the objectives of that particular process and the project. Now, this slide is really just some helpful tips for those of you who have not worked in Africa before, who are thinking to go to Africa and would like to see more and more of those. I know that maybe some of the participants are already working in Africa, they know all of this, but for the new ones who are thinking to take it, please, these are some maybe helpful information that we hope will help you to win and go and win contracts on the continent. First of all, the bank you need to know about the opportunities, not only by following the bank's website, not only by attending events like this, but you need to attend also what we call the bank's business opportunity seminars. These are two major seminars that the bank organizes once a year. There you don't only hear from people like me in procurement, where they'll tell you about the procurement framework, where to find information and so on, but there you will also be able on the second day to have one-on-one meetings with our sector experts. So if you are in a company that, for example, you are in the water sector and you are thinking about a particular project in a particular country, you can request a one-on-one meeting with the bank expert that is handling that particular project and get first-hand information about where the exact status of the project is, maybe where the opportunity is likely to be, what are the requirements of the bank as far as this particular project is. So that's an important forum for you to attend. Of course, if there are trade missions, you need to go as much as possible. This is really show you in the country, being there and spend a lot of time in the country, because Africa is a little bit different. You need to be prepared to spend time there. It's not like any business mission where you will go and maybe 1 or 2 days and you will have to spend more time. You will find yourself being asked to attend meetings in out of office hours. You find that to meetings maybe in 2-3 days time. So you have to be prepared to spend some time and really explore the country and research the market very well. And I think that using market experts, using market validity or validation techniques and expertise, it's very important that you know that your information about the market is recent, is valid, is accurate. That is extremely important. One and the most important, I think, tip that I can give is you have to choose a local representation. You have to choose, and this one is crucial. You have to get the right partner on the ground that represents you and represents your company. Africa is a very diverse country, diverse continent as far as cultural issues and society issues are concerned. Even within the same country, just traveling from one side of the country to the other, you find yourself in a completely different environment with a different culture and so on, and so on. So, and the way things are done may be a little bit different to how things are done in Europe. So the local representation will help you through these, to handle all this and address all these kind of issues. Don't underestimate the lead time of procurement. I don't want to here be shooting myself in the foot by saying our procurement takes time, but as I've mentioned, sometimes due to the maybe the qualification of the executing agency, it may take longer than you expect. If you are expecting particular opportunity, a particular contract to be signed by that date, it may take longer. Also, short distances on the map may take you much longer than you think. It can be on the map something that you believe it will be a 1 hour drive, and because of the nature of the road, and maybe during the rainy season or so, it will take you 7 to 8 hours. So you have to keep that in mind. Some countries may have communication challenges, internet issues, sending emails, receiving responses may take much longer than you really are used to. One last important issue is understand fully the national tax regime. And of course, the bank may, for example, in consulting services, you have your price should include taxes. In goods, it can be separated. But at the end of the day, you need to understand your commitments at the level of the country. And if you have a local representative, each country has a different complex system of taxes that you need to be fully aware of and fully understand how to navigate this system. And maybe local representation here also plays a role. My final slide is why you should participate in bank procurement. As you've seen, and I hope that this came out clear from this presentation and from the previous presentations also, that the bank offers billions of dollars worth of business every year. All our shareholders, we treat them equally. We make sure that bidders have an equal opportunity and receive a fair treatment when they are competing for bank projects. It opens an opportunity to enter developing markets. And as bidders always tell me that, once we win one contract in a country, we are there on the ground and it opens the door. Just that first contract that is important. And then we are there and we can move not only within this specific country, but within the whole region where we are. We follow and make sure that the borrowers follow a particular process that has a high standard of integrity. This you can be assured of. And whenever we hear, I'm not saying that our processes, our procurement is watertight, things do happen, but we have a zero tolerance policy towards corruption. And whenever we hear about an issue, we will go very far and we'll act very fast in investigating and in some cases canceling processes or stopping them or addressing complaints. This is also a very important aspect to us. High certainty of payment, as I said, we do pay international bidders directly. So you will be assured if you fulfill your commitment under the contract that you will be paid and you will be paid on time. We offer a variety of contract sizes that suits different companies, different sizes of company, and also is across all sectors that the bank operates in. So for all this, you will find, I'm sure, an opportunity to bid and win under bank finance process. That was my presentation. I hope you found it useful. I finally wish all of you that as you are maybe attending, the ones who already have contracts with the bank, I would like to tell them I wish to see you winning more contracts, and the ones who haven't yet won contracts with the bank, I wish to tell them that I would like to see you and hope that very soon you will be able to win and participate successfully on the bank contract. So I thank you for your attention, and as promised, this was about a 42-minute presentation, so we still have about 18 to 20 minutes where I can address maybe some of your questions. And of course, at the end, there is another Q&A session, so I'll be there also if you still have more questions. So Bernard, back to you, or how do we?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so we have many questions which poured in the meantime. Most of them addressed to you, some of them to Simone. So let's start very quickly. I would kindly ask you, Ashraf, there are many questions. Let's try to answer as many as we can. So please give fast. If an answer allows a fast answer, just give the fast answer and let's move to the next one so we make sure everybody gets an answer to their question. Okay, let's start with Nicola Bertolini from Ambiente Spa. He's an interesting question. He's asking, we successfully finished our consultancy assignment and have been paid by the client, but we are not capable to get the performance guarantee. What do you suggest?
This is to me or to Simone?
To you.
Okay. So, I mean, you can write to the bank, you can write to us and say that I have already finished my commitments under this contract. And then we will approach the borrower and see and ask for reasons why this guarantee is still being held by the borrower. And then we will see, I mean, if there is valid reasons where the borrower is still hanging to your guarantee, then of course we are going to see how this can be resolved. But if there is no real reason for a valid reason, then you will ask that this guarantee be released immediately. So all what is required is to write to the bank. You can write to the bank through the office of the executive director. I think Simone is here, he represents this office, and from there it will be handled internally by the bank.
Great. Next one. Recent bids we submitted to the AFB, we're experiencing delays months in receiving feedback. Is this normal or is it related to the pandemic?
Well, in some cases it's normal, in some cases it's related to of course, the pandemic had an effect and it slowed things even more. But if you've seen my presentation, I said, please expect a longer lead time in some cases. Not all our projects are like that, but expect longer lead time in some cases like this. But again, if you are suffering from delays that is not clear to you the reason, and you're not getting sufficient or a convincing response from the executing agency, again, you can write to the bank and ask for the bank to intervene, or at least to inquire or give you the reasons and the likely time where you're going to get more information about that process.
Great, thank you. Let's move on. We have Stefano Cocca, who's asking, which is the typical structure of expert financing under the AFD scheme? Does the AFDB grant a credit facility directly to the African buyer, or the AFDB acts as a guarantor or borrower under financing granted by other entities? Example, like an international bank. This is for you, Ayad.
Well, I mean, we have both. The bank have different financing instruments and different tools where it intervenes or it designs its intervention. In some cases, it is providing financing directly to the borrower. It can be private sector, can be public sector. Or in some cases, the bank may intervene in a form of a guarantee, like what was mentioned, and will be guaranteeing a particular financing that is offered to one of its beneficiaries. So it's a different financing tools of the bank. And if you attend the opportunity seminar that I mentioned about, you will get to listen from our treasury experts that can explain more and more in detail the different financing tools that the bank can offer.
Thank you. Let's move to the next one. Elena Sermasi is asking, under a contract financed by AFB, is it possible to ask for assistance if the government counterpart does not fulfill the contract obligations?
Yes, absolutely. You can submit a complaint to the bank, and the bank will look into it and will make a decision accordingly. And that's absolutely possible.
How can you submit a complaint? Is there a specific link on the website, or is there somewhere you can?
Yes, in our bidding documents, there is a specific mail address that is, targeted for complaints. I think it's procurement complaints at afdb.org, but you'll find it in all our bidding documents. In the first 2-3 pages, you'll find this address where you can send directly the complaint, and we will handle it from there.
Thank you. Move on. We've got this other question about the ADB requesting the bidders the addition to the IFC performance standards in bidding process, and of course the implementation since early project phases. I'm not sure I understand this question. Maybe let's read it again. Ayad, have you got any clue?
No, can you please say it again? Maybe we'll get. I didn't get it also.
Let's shift it for later. Let's move to the next one for now.
Okay.
We got another question from Mr. Bertolini. If not shortlisted, may we get the debrief of our unsuccessful candidature?
Well, thank you for this question. You have the right for debriefing, and it is a goods and works kind of operation. Then the bank obliges, even for consulting services, the bank publishes what we call the publication of award, and this is also on our bank's website, where it say to whom the contract has been awarded, why, and the cost, and so on. And if you are not happy and you would like a debriefing by the client, you can ask the borrower for a debriefing, and if they resist, you can ask the bank to intervene as well. But debriefing is a right of any bidder in our procurement processes.
Great. Virginia Ferrari, we submitted a lot of proposals, but we never received an official reply. Why?
Well, what kind of proposal? I mean, is it at an expression of interest stage, or is a proposal at a proposal stage, or so on? Because sometimes you submit a proposal at an expression of interest, and then it says clearly in the advert that only shortlisted firms are going to be notified. So maybe this is why. But if you maybe give me more information on whether it was a bid or an expression of interest or a proposal, it means of a technical financial proposal, then I'll be able to respond better. But I assume it most probably is a UI that you look at.
Thank you. Again, another question. After shortlisting, the bidder does its own tech financial proposal. What happens if we are not capable to get the results? Sometimes also it's not easy to get the final notification award. How can we get such an info?
It has to be published on the bank's website. If it's not published, you alert the executing agency that they need to publish the result, and they need to debrief you and inform you of the result. That's part of the bank's transparency. If they are reluctant, then you just write to us and we will follow it.
Good. Now, how are companies? How can companies participate to these projects? Do we need an African branch or a company, or can we bid with an Italian company?
Of course, you can bid with an Italian company. Italy is a full member of the African Development Bank, and you can bid from. But my advice is that if you haven't bid before or not been involved before in an African country, it's always good to have some local representation. To travel to the country, have someone to represent you there, so that the local issues, the local cultural issues, and others are also addressed by you. But I've been involved in projects where companies been bidding from Italy and winning from Italy. It's no problem at all.
Thanks. Okay. Here, in fact, this is a question connected to the previous one. How can we come in contact with local companies, African companies, so that we can establish partnerships and contribute our services to the project, which is standard? So I guess this question boils down: is it useful, and how? What do you recommend? What's the best strategy to find a local partner?
Well, what I can recommend is, I'll here maybe put my hat as a bidder before I join the bank. Is first of all, you have to travel to the country yourself. You can organize meetings through the embassy and the commercial offices in the embassy with the different actors in that particular sector that you are involved in. Also, there is the syndicates of companies, engineering associations, different kinds of associations in the country that you organize meetings with, ask them for recommendations. There is also the trade missions sometimes that are organized maybe by the country. If it is the case, then you should go on those and get to know. One also interesting one is the expatriate community in the country. You need also to meet those, try and meet the different expats, maybe other Italian expats that are present in this country and so on. And then from all this, you'll be able to identify, of course, in addition to a proper market survey and market analysis, you'll be able to identify who are the main players in the country that in that particular sector and that particular field that you are interested in. And be very careful. This is a crucial choice that you will be making at that stage. With a good local representation, you're increasing your chances much more to get work and to do work successfully in a particular country. Maybe this is the advice that I can get, but of course the bank does not play a role there yet.
Thank you for your answer. Question from Mr. Stefano Cocca: which are the parameters to be satisfied in order to access financing from the AFDB? For instance, a particular KPI ratio that the client's financial statement must meet, socioeconomic impact, and so on.
Well, this is a little bit beyond my specialization in procurement, I think this is a question that maybe can be addressed through the office of Italy in the bank to our colleagues in Treasury and in Finance Department, where they can maybe give you the details of what are the requirements and what do they look for, in terms of the credit risks and so on, the financial strengths of a company in order for them to access financing from the bank. But that is beyond the procurement.
Okay, fair enough. Giovanni Morini is asking, since monitoring contracts is one of the key points in FDB activities, you probably engage owner engineering services to supervise and control technical matters. Is there a qualification process to get approved for such role?
Well, of course. I mean, as I mentioned, my presentation was on the bank's procurement that is happening under projects. But there is another element and another window for opportunity, especially for individual consultants, even for consulting firms, where the bank recruits under its corporate procurement side. We recruit a lot of experts by the bank to work within the bank in order for us to provide us with technical assistance, to provide us with expertise in fields where bank staff may require more expertise in this regard. So this also takes place by the bank. But for engineering monitoring under a project's procurement is still recruited by the borrower under project financing. But if you go one level above that, how the bank itself does its own supervision, in many occasions there are opportunities where the bank will employ consultants for its own use to do supervision of projects as well.
Okay, may you give us some information regarding okay, this is a general question, I guess, which I suppose you can get all this information on the website, or am I mistaken?
Yes, of course. I mean, you can be registered on the bank's database of consultants. It's called DACON. So if you go to DACON, unfortunately, it's not my let's call it my shop in the bank, but it's called DACON, DACON. And if you put search in the website, you'll get to this database where you can register and be on the bank's database. And then whenever there's an opportunity, you'll be able. And all, by the way, corporate opportunities as well are advertised on the bank's website also. But it's handled by a different team altogether. So, I mean, this is more on projects procurement, what I was doing.
Okay, here's another very long question. Let's try to sum it up with a short answer. As you know, sometimes Italian SMEs have limited financial resources, but many times they have high innovative and competitive technologies in clean technology sector, agri-industry, and wastewater treatment. What he's asking, this is a very general question, how they can get financial support from your bank. I guess also by attending this seminar and these webinars is the answer. Who should we contact? I guess all the information is already available on the website of the FDB, and you just need to have a little patience maybe and scroll to the sectors and get some time. I don't know, you want to add something, Ashraf?
Yes, I mean, the bank may provide financing from its private sector window, but also some of the initiatives that the bank take, in terms of trust funds that the bank would be entrusted with from different countries for particular initiatives may offer some grants in some cases and some financing for particular entities, for particular companies to do things. So, but all this, as I say, is advertised. Nothing is happening in the bank that is in the dark. You will find that on the bank's website, and you'll be able, whenever there's a call for proposals for companies that would like to receive financing from the bank for a particular initiative, you will get that on the website as well. But again, this is not procurement, this is financing.
Okay, this is about agriculture, sviluppo attraverso l'uso di macchine e della tecnologia, come poter risolvere il problema delle esigenze piccole della vostra banca. I guess this is the question about when you got small companies. This is a recurrent question. Are we too small to work with the bank? Do we need to have a minimum, structure or a minimum size?
No. The bank offers different types of contracts, different sizes, various sizes, either under its corporate part or under its projects. It depends on the assignment. And of course, I mean, you are very free to, from individual consultants to very large firms, the whole spectrum is covered by different bank packages and so on. So there's no minimum requirement for you to work on the bank projects.
Okay, here's a question maybe for Simone. Ok, alla luce di questi dati, cosa manca alle imprese italiane per essere più partecipi e competitive? Or everybody can feel free to chip in, maybe also, I don't know if Carpaneto wants to chip in, Lovato. Let's start with Martelli. Perché? Cosa ci manca?
Well, on this, well, let me pick just a couple of questions also from before, but on this one, I would say I would really, well, I would leave to your agency to respond to that question. I would say that, I mean, my note was done also in that under that perspective. Let's say I come from the Ministry of Finance in Italy, so I don't have a trade background, and as such, as I said, I mean, the note was done with the idea of developing a better understanding of what are our strengths and where we should work on. So I'm sure you are better placed to
maybe let's have Roberto Carpaneto take this question.
Yeah, let me answer to this question, or at least try. I think we have the right, let's say, condition to do much better with the African Development Bank, because we have the right experience, we have the right capabilities, we have the resources, we have very good prepared persons, we have employees which are used to travel around the world and in Africa in particular. So we can do a very good job with the African Development Bank. The fact probably that we are missing now is that we need to try to work together among us, build, let's say, joint ventures, build and work with our other Italian company and together with local companies. Before somebody was talking about, or a question was relevant to the participation to this bid with local company, etc. This is a very important point. And to have contact with this company is not only maybe, as Mr. Ayad suggested, to travel to the site, to the countries, which is of course very important, but you can use also OICE with these roles. Our organization, and I think also ICE can help with that. I mean, our organization, at least OICE, can, let's say, put in contact with other international organization, engineering organization, and have names of company, and then the different company can have a contract and B2B meeting together, and of course in this time web contact, and try to build, let's say, good partnership and try to tender with the bank. This is a very key point for two reasons, because let's say there is one important thing that in this kind of assignment, and I tell you this also for, let's say, personal experience with my company, it's very important to have, of course, the contribution of technical contribution, experience, etc. But it's very important to have a cultural component. And you can have these only if you play with local company that sometimes and many times they are very good technically, but the most important, they can provide, let's say, the cultural content to the project development. It's not the same to develop an important project in Tunisia or in Chad or in other countries. Is sometimes is different. The approach is different, and it is something that I believe usually is very clear in the, and maybe Mr. Ayed can confirm, is very clear actually in the bid document, in the scope of work described. This component is very important, particularly now that we are talking about sustainability, ESG project in general, where these aspects are important and key. And from the technical, so answering to this question, we don't have much to learn in terms of technical capability and experiences, but probably we need to work together among other different Italian companies to have the appropriate massive, impact, and also to work with local company to have the local cultural component in our bids, okay, in our proposal. And to be successful for this.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Carpaneto, for your answer. And I guess also a key point of contact could be our offices in we've got an office in Accra and the Italian Trade Agency, and also we have a small so-called antenna, a desk in Abidjan, which is of course, headquarters of the bank. So we will share all this information with the presentation so that you can feel free to reach out to our colleagues based in...
Bernard, let me add one more word, which is this, that as OICE, I said that we are available for, let's say, put in contact companies and put among Italian and among, let's say, company at the different country. But I have to remind that as OICE, together with ICE many times, we organize missions in those countries. And lately, actually, we have organized web missions, but we have done missions in Tunisia, mission in Egypt, in Morocco, in many countries. And every time, of course, we are talking about opportunity in those countries, but many times during this mission or during these we call web missions, we have the opportunity to meet the stakeholders of those countries, but also companies of those countries and engineering company, where we can, let's say, build a relationship, etc. And all the times, actually, we send to our to the company who are present at this mission, and of course, and the webinar, we send the contacts where they can then contact these companies and build, let's say, joint ventures to present proposal to the tenders. Okay,
thank you.
May I add just two elements quickly? Sure. In this perspective of long-term planning for developing partnerships in Africa, which is I fully subscribe to what has said. The bank has three, say, level of information sources, which have been reported by Ayad. One is the collection of procurement bids. Then there is the level going up, which is the last stage, let's say. Then going up, there is the collection of projects approved by the board, which is an anticipation of possible procurements on one end. Procurement. And if you go one level up, I mean, to take a more broader perspective, there are country strategy papers that the bank has in place for each country in Africa. There are 5 years documents, planning documents to guide the operations of the bank in each African country. And from that one that you can find on as the others, on the public section of the bank website, you can grasp which are the priority areas where the bank will look into to finance projects, both private sector and public sector projects, and the indicative pipeline for the first 3 years, then more or less, and then, I mean, for more in general for the all 5 years. And I think that's also a good document to look into when one plans a mission and is at the stage of developing, of getting to know better the country and planning a mission looking into partnerships. On the other end, another idea to look at local at companies, as Ayad referred to, there is the part of the website where all procurement contracts all procurement that is being awarded to companies is made public. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and there you can, companies willing to develop a partnership could also look into the companies that have been active in each field and in each country to also have a further idea of who has been already successful, let's say, in the past, both African-based companies or Italian companies as best example of best practices, let's say. But all that data is also public, and it could be a source of information. It is the basis for that I used to the analysis that I presented before.
Okay, thank you.
And as for the last thing, as for the private sector projects, we should bear in mind that actually those projects tend to be big projects for the bank to get direct financing. I would say minimum of 20 million up, possibly up, and there is let's say an effort for the bank to look into bigger projects overall. So actually there is I would say a tendency to have a minimum project size for direct financing to private companies from the bank.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Let me share the two last questions. There are so many questions pouring in. I'm sorry we cannot answer all. We will forward these questions to Mr. Ayad, and if he will be so gracious to answer to you by email, that would be very nice. So we have just time left for two last questions, and I guess here we go. So we have, I guess this is a very interesting one because we get a lot of this question. Ashraf, please. The final decision on there is a lot of confusion. We always get this question. There is the final decision on the selection of a company for a tender is usually done by the borrower, or is it done jointly by the bank and the borrower?
No, what happens is that the borrower will do the evaluation of the tendering process and then will recommend the winner. And then they will submit this report, an evaluation report, to the bank for review. If the bank is happy with how the process was conducted, then the bank will give its no objection, and the borrower will now be empowered to award the contract. If the bank sees some issue with the evaluation process, then the bank basically will object to this recommendation and will ask the borrower to reconsider. And then the borrower will go back, they will try to address the issues that the bank have raised and maybe come back with another recommendation. So in short, it is the final decision and the final responsibility is always by the borrower. If they decide not to follow what the bank has said and still award the contract, they can do that. No one can stop them, but the bank is not going to finance this contract in this part. But however, they will do an evaluation, they will do a recommendation. The bank has to clear it in order for them to award the contract, for the contract to be financed by the bank. Is that clear?
Yes, very clear, very clear. And connected to that is during the tender evaluation phase, the briefing and technical evaluation can be requested during all phases, for instance, before the financial opening session, and in which cases, or it's mandatory to wait after the award notification?
No, you have to wait after the award notification. The procurement process, as soon as it starts, as the time for the proposal is closed, the bid closing date, and now the executing agency, when it moves into the evaluation stage, the bidders move also to the recipient stage. So they cannot approach the executing agency at all during the evaluation. In fact, if it's done by a bidder, he may even be rejected. So you will have to wait and receive. If they have a clarification, they will send to you to clarify your proposal. Now, once this is concluded and the result is announced, there you can in fact ask for a debriefing if you are not happy, and so on. One important maybe issue to say here, and it's in goods and works contracts, we are introducing what we call a standstill period under some of our projects. In other words, the result will be announced and the contract is not going to be awarded for a period of time, usually it's 10 days, to give time for bidders who wants to object or to complain or to say that they are not satisfied with the outcome, for the bank to look into that before finalizing the award to the contract.
Very clear, very important. So don't do it before or else you can be disqualified. This is the message. Wait till the end. Okay, very, very last, and I apologize because this is really the last one. Does the FB staff take part into the evaluation process? No, we already answered this question, I guess. The AFB doesn't take part, I guess, right?
No, we don't. We don't.
Okay, I think Thank you so much all the companies, grazie a tutte le imprese for all these questions, and ci scusiamo per non aver potuto rispondere a tutte, ma saranno inviate quelle a cui non abbiamo fatto in tempo a rispondere a Mr. Ayad, che cortesemente ci ha già anticipato che vi risponderà per email. Tempo di muovere alla prossima sessione. La prossima sessione è un panel discussion. Abbiamo Massimo Zaurrini che condurrà questa fase di domande e risposte molto interattiva. Massimo Zaurrini non ha bisogno di presentazioni per chi segue l'Africa. Mi taccio e passo la parola a Massimo e alle due società italiane presenti nel panel discussion. Prego Massimo.
Grazie Bernard. Buongiorno a tutti, sono Massimo Zaurrini, il direttore di Africa Affari Info Africa, due mezzi di informazione specializzata per il continente. Arrivo subito, abbiamo oggi due aziende, due società che sono, insomma, per chi io le ho incontrate in Africa. Presento la prima, che è lo studio Pietrangeli e Team Engineering. Sono le aziende che hanno ottenuto, le due imprese italiane con il miglior track record nell'aggiudicazione di contratti della Banca Africana di Sviluppo sul settore ingegneristico. Sono entrambe aziende iscritte a OICE, quindi hanno il senso del loro intervento oggi è proprio quello di condividere con voi l'esperienza positiva che possono vantare. Presento brevemente chi interviene. Anna McCauley per lo studio Pietrangeli. Anna, sei in linea? Microfono aperto?
Sì, eccomi.
E Filippo Macchioni del gruppo Team Engineering.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Macchioni, buongiorno. Comincerei da Anna McCauley. Il gruppo Pietrangeli è quasi leggendario, cioè girando nel continente i racconti, almeno a me personalmente è capitato più di una volta, i racconti di questo ingegner Pietrangeli che disegnava dighe sui fazzoletti di ristoranti sono stati ripetuti più volte. Ci racconta questo legame tra lo studio Pietrangeli e l'Africa, come nasce, perché nasce?
Il legame nasce negli anni 60, intorno al 66-67, in Etiopia, quando il famigerato, famoso, notorio ingegner Pietrangeli, GP, appunto è stato incaricato insieme all'architetto Salini, grandi amicizie tra loro due, di progettare e costruire entro tempi brevissimi la diga di Legadadi per l'approvvigionamento di acqua potabile alle città di Addis Abeba. Quindi nasce lì, appunto, quindi sono oltre 50 anni che siamo in Africa.
Bene. La stessa domanda a Filippo Macchioni di Team Engineering invece. Voi anche è un gruppo di Roma che personalmente ho conosciuto sul terreno e sulle cronache. Noi ci occupiamo di seguire gli sviluppi economici del continente ogni giorno e abbiamo incrociato questo gruppo perché continuavamo a vedere il loro nome associato a importanti progetti e importanti lavori nel continente, finché poi li abbiamo chiamati, intervistati, ci siamo conosciuti. Anche la vostra è una presenza datata, antica e molto pervasiva nel continente. Perché in Africa, ingegner Macchioni?
Da quelle immagini in bianco e nero che stava mostrando si vede che anche noi abbiamo una storia, anche noi di 45 anni. In Africa i nostri soci fondatori erano lì lavorando per un'impresa e hanno avuto questa intuizione di proporre dei servizi di ingegneria, di capire il valore, la percezione del valore dei servizi di ingegneria in un contesto non solo africano ma devo dire internazionale, in cui spesso questo non è così capito. Noi ancora dopo tanti anni qualcuno ci chiede ok, ma quanti Caterpillar avete? Il che sembra un po' bizzarro, ma è così, nel senso far capire l'importanza dei servizi, del valore della progettazione, di una corretta direzione lavori per un'opera, il valore di questo per un'opera a volte non è semplice, ora molti lo hanno capito, lo stanno capendo, per questo che ci hanno apprezzato e continuano ad apprezzarci dopo molti anni di attività nel paese. Abbiamo iniziato brevemente con un cold store, quindi una mini struttura servita alla catena del freddo, per andare poi sullo sviluppo urbano, e siamo approdati alle infrastrutture di trasporto, che sono fondamentali per un continente così rapida espansione.
Grazie Macchioni. Macaulay, voi siete la società italiana che ha vinto e si è aggiudicata più contratti con la FDB. Com'è lavorare con la banca? Abbiamo sentito insomma un sacco di domande di suoi colleghi dal lato procurement, che è quello che affrontiamo oggi, quindi non il finanziamento. Alcune domande erano su aspetti diversi. Com'è lavorare con la banca africana?
Noi abbiamo soltanto avuto esperienze positive con la banca, di la verità, perché chiaramente noi partecipiamo in gare per consulenza, per progettazioni di opere idrauliche, dighe, impianti idroelettrici in Africa in generale, nel mondo in generale, ma in Africa in questo troviamo che la banca sia attenta alla procedura di procurement alla fine di tutto il processo. Cioè noi rispettiamo, cioè siamo molto attenti anche noi quando prepariamo le nostre offerte, che rispettiamo alla lettera i procurement rules della banca, e quindi in realtà abbiamo avuto pochi, anzi mai mi sembra, episodi di avere offerte rigettate o rifiutate oppure eliminate per mancanza di chiarezza o per documenti che mancavano, eccetera. Quindi rispettare bene le procurement rules, le regole di procurement della banca assicura una
Macaulay, ma c'è un ruolo anche delle implement agency?
Sono le implementation executing agencies, che a volte hanno tempi molto più macchinosi, molto più lunghi, eccetera. Infatti le procedure di procurement possono andare avanti per mesi e mesi e mesi, anche addirittura a volte anche più volte, anche per qualche anno.
Grazie.
Macchioni, anche a lei non è colpa della banca, ma colpa dell'executing agency.
Certo, è chiaro. Ingegner Macchioni, anche a lei la stessa domanda. Anche voi siete appunto, in realtà, visti i numeri che sono stati dati in precedenza, praticamente quasi tutti i contratti di FDB ve li siete divisi fra le vostre due aziende. Come vi trovate a lavorare con la banca? E la stessa domanda sulle implement agency.
Posso rispondere facendo questa precisazione. Quando ci capita un bando nuovo in Africa, una delle prime domande che ci facciamo è: ok, chi finanzia questo bando? È l'African Development Bank o la World Bank, un IFI in generale, o i local government? Perché fa differenza in termini di... qui si torna alla AAA che ci ha ricordato di Strayad prima, no? dell'agenzia. Quindi diciamo è chiaro che una garanzia di sicurezza, certezza dei pagamenti, quindi è fondamentale. Dopodiché, diciamo, le interazioni che noi nella nostra esperienza abbiamo avuto specificatamente con l'African Development Bank è relativamente limitata, nel senso che l'African Development Bank lascia una certa autonomia gestionale del processo di gara all'implementing agency, quindi con loro normalmente ci interfacciamo, però in sostanza è fondamentale per noi che ci sia l'African Development Bank in Africa con tutte le sue complessità.
Macchioni, la prossima domanda la passo a lei, e poi dopo stessa anche per Macaulay. Notate delle differenze tra il modo di lavorare con la AFDB o la Banca Africana di Sviluppo e magari altre EFI, non so, pensa a World Bank o banche europee?
Ad occhio potremmo dire che magari l'African Development Bank e la World Bank hanno delle similarità in termini di processi gestionali di gara, come dicevo poco fa, dando una certa delega, diciamo, all'ente beneficiario del finanziamento. La BEI hanno per esempio la BERS ha delle diciamo, delle procedure un pochino più blindate. Questo nel bene e nel male, basta conoscerle ovviamente. Di fatto l'African Development Bank ha una penetrazione nel continente Africa che le altre non hanno in sostanza, quindi questo per noi è sicuramente fondamentale.
Anna McCauley, anche a lei la stessa domanda. Differenze? Qualcosa da segnalare?
No, niente di particolarmente rilevante. Come diceva il Chione, insomma, basta sapere c'è la differenza tra AFDB, Banca Mondiale, EBRD, KFW, AIB, eccetera, hanno le differenze nelle procedure, basta seguire le regole e tutto va bene. Abbiamo notato noi, la nostra esperienza, che nei progetti che stiamo seguendo, anzi addirittura l'altra collega sta in una riunione in questo preciso momento con un cliente e con la FTP, proprio perché periodicamente ogni 6 mesi o ogni anno c'è una riunione in questo progetto particolare con tutte le parti per verificare il progresso dell'opera, dell'assignment e così via. La Banca Mondiale, piuttosto di fare queste riunioni periodiche, noi abbiamo interagito più con il panel of experts della Banca Mondiale che fa la supervisione dall'alto, la high surveillance dei progetti in cui siamo
McCauley, mi scusi, nella sua esperienza, nella vostra esperienza come gruppo, quanto è importante lavorare con un partner locale? O è importante, insomma, magari non lo è?
Allora, in alcuni casi, in alcune gare è obbligatorio, perché è proprio specificato nel bando, perché ci deve essere una componente locale per poter acquisire un certo punteggio, generalmente sono 5 punti sul punteggio totale per la parte tecnica, e questi punti vengono assegnati a secondo dei mesi uomo assegnato a figure locali nella squadra. Noi principalmente lavoriamo con sub-consultants, però, perché nel caso nostro l'esperienza richiesta e le referenze richieste per poter partecipare al bando ce l'abbiamo noi internamente,
certo,
non abbiamo bisogno di andare con altri partners per avere le qualifiche, però è utile o appunto a volte necessario avere anche una rappresentanza locale, un sub-consultant locale, che comunque sia, al di là del fatto di punteggi, ci aiuta pure a avere un po'
anche
di incontro tra noi e il cliente quando è necessario.
Ingegner Macchioni, vorrei cambiare capitolo, non so se sul partner locale ha voglia di dire qualcosa, altrimenti mi muoverei sulla Cina.
Brevemente posso dire, visto che mi sta alzando questa palla, diciamo così, che noi siamo come gruppo, siamo internazionali e locali allo stesso tempo, perché abbiamo società di diritto locale, perlomeno nei paesi che presidiamo, diciamo, in pianta stabile. Poi ovviamente la scelta del partner locale è fondamentale, molto spesso è prescribed, diciamo così, dal bando, con le attenzioni di cui parlava Mr. Ayad. La scelta del partner locale è un aspetto importante, anche noi sono accadute delle situazioni non ottimali in questo senso, ma fa parte delle famose lessons learned per il futuro.
Dicevo, apro adesso una piccola parentesi, abbiamo ancora 7 minuti prima di chiudere, piccola, qui potremmo stare ore a parlarne, ma la Cina. Okay, quindi la Cina, in Africa c'è anche tanta leggenda, anche qui tanta letteratura, soprattutto da parte dei miei colleghi giornalisti a cui piace usare dei toni un po' esagerati spesso, però è un dato di fatto che le aziende cinesi sono passate da un 3% a un 40% di aggiudicazione di contratti dell'FDI. E soprattutto in settori che riguardano non direttamente il vostro, ma la fase subito successiva. Stranamente, però, nel vostro settore, quindi nella parte ingegneristica, sono assenti. Macchioni, secondo lei è un caso, è una questione di tempo?
Beh, è innanzitutto un buon segnale, perché voglio dire, e questo senza nulla levare i cinesi che fanno delle cose bellissime anche delle infrastrutture incredibilmente mostruose in tempi ridottissimi, lo sappiamo questo. In Africa purtroppo la nostra esperienza ed è un luogo comune anche vero, le risorse che vengono allocate dai cinesi sia a livello tecnico che umano non sono tra le migliori, quindi a maggior ragione si richiede, insomma, è valorizzata quindi il ruolo di un consulente terzo realmente indipendente che possa supportare il governo nello sviluppo delle infrastrutture. Vediamo che ovviamente il modello cinese di cui parla lei, diciamo, sta avendo degli effetti di ritorno in qualche modo su alcuni paesi. Alcuni paesi non si sono accorti un po' forse dell'eccessiva, chiamiamola invasione, ma insomma comunque diciamo i cinesi portando finanziamenti, sono estremamente presenti, sono veramente tentacolari e tendono a portare tutto, risorse umane, a coprire ogni aspetto della commessa, e quindi diciamo percepiamo la voglia di molti clienti di avvalersi di consulenti esterni.
Macaulay, Studio Pietrangeli con Salini in realtà è un po' un caso particolare, c'è tanta paura dei cinesi e della loro forza. Voi ci lavorate, quindi con Ghibetre, ma insomma, com'è l'esperienza vista? Come si lavora in Africa con i cinesi?
Ma quella domanda dovrebbe forse rivolgerla più alla Salini o a quelle imprese di costruzione che non a noi, perché noi siamo i progettisti, quindi il discorso in questo caso di Ghibetre oppure altri progetti in Etiopia in costruzione con Salini è eventualmente un problema Salini e non il nostro. La nostra esperienza nel ruolo di supervisione dei lavori su altri progetti non Salini sono le stesse problematiche che abbiamo con altri contractors, salvo forse c'è la difficoltà in più del problema linguistico che ci può creare qualche misunderstanding o qualche difficoltà, però i cinesi stessi sono consapevoli di questo fatto e sono ben forniti di interpreti, traduttori.
Grazie mille.
Quindi.
Grazie. Poi ho un'ultima domanda per entrambi, però una curiosità mia, perché conosco appunto Team Engineering, è molto presente, è presente in tutto il continente, ma insomma diciamo che il suo nocciolo è il West Africa. Lì, a parte i cinesi, c'è anche un altro attore europeo che insomma che sono i francesi, per cui la leggenda vuole che i francesi nei paesi di area francofona del West Africa ti facciano aprire una gelateria o una pizzeria molto volentieri, ma se vai a toccare infrastrutture, cioè, operazioni importanti, eccetera, ti mettono i bastoni fra le ruote. È una leggenda o c'è qualcosa di vero, o come si lavora con loro? Poi ho un'ultima domanda a entrambi e poi chiudiamo.
Sicuramente i francesi nell'Africa francofona la dicono in maniera pesante in qualche modo per le note radici storiche, culturali di presenza nel continente. E anche per il supporto delle istituzioni, a volte anche con finanziamenti. Ecco, quindi sappiamo che la cooperazione italiana, anche con l'avvento, cioè con l'inclusione della Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, si sta ristrutturando in tal senso. Sarebbe molto benvenuto un contributo, delle volte anche un finanziamento di un piccolo studio di fattibilità può essere l'innesco di un progetto, diciamo, al quale le imprese italiane possano avere accesso, in sostanza.
Allora, veramente un flash, 30 secondi ciascuno, e siamo stati nei tempi che ci sono stati dati. Stavo guardando le domande poste durante le sessioni che ci hanno preceduto. Secondo voi, dalla vostra esperienza, iniziamo con Macchioni e poi chiudiamo con Macaulay, perché c'è tanta poca confidenza da parte delle aziende italiane del vostro settore, ma lo stesso potrebbe valere per altri, sull'Africa e sulla FDB? Cioè, voi conoscete molto bene questo continente e la struttura e le strutture presenti, ma perché ancora, o che consiglio dareste a chi chiedeva, voleva sapere?
Ma l'African Development Bank, in particolare ovviamente in Africa, secondo me è una grande opportunità per un primo accesso nel paese. Magari con l'African Development Bank da remoto si può vincere una gara che poi ti dà la possibilità di entrare in un determinato paese, quindi fare un follow-up personale con tutti quei SEMA di cui parlava Mr. Ayad, cioè preparatevi a spendere molto tempo nel paese. Noi sono tanti anni che siamo lì e diciamo cerchiamo di gestire e monitorare un processo che comunque è in cambiamento. Cioè io penso che lavorare in Africa oggi è estremamente diverso da lavorare in Africa non solo 50 anni fa, ma anche 10-15 anni fa. Oggi c'è un mondo di stakeholders sempre più popolato, di enti governativi, paragovernativi che devono dire la loro sul procedimento, sull'approvazione progettuale, eccetera. Quindi bisogna mettersi lì con molta umiltà, rimboccandosi le maniche e avere tempo, insomma.
Grazie mille, aggiungo io anche studiare e informarsi prima. Macaulay, anche a lei la stessa domanda.
Concordo pienamente con ciò che ha detto Macchione, che effettivamente la differenza, cioè si sta notando la differenza tra lavorare in Africa oggi e 10 anni fa. Questo è anche però dovuto al fatto che, ringraziando anche l'African Development Bank e gli sforzi che stanno facendo, che gli stessi, per quanto riguarda cioè, il campo di ingegneristica, comunque si stanno acquisendo anche loro delle expertise, delle capacità tecniche e così via, quindi stanno piano piano giustamente diventando competitors validissimi anche loro in tutti i campi.
Aggiungo un'ultima cosa e poi ridò la parola a Bernard. Faccio uno spot per ICE perché è per il sistema paese che si sta rinforzando. Dico alle aziende, una delle lamentele che noi sentiamo sempre da molte aziende è il sistema paese. È vero, è più debole di altri sistemi paese, è vero, è più fragile, ma si sta rinforzando. ICE, io mi ricordo quando noi abbiamo iniziato la nostra avventura, lavoravamo solo con l'ufficio di Johannesburg, perché c'era solo Johannesburg. Adesso c'è colleghi, i direttori dei vari uffici ICE sparsi ora per il continente sono bravi. Le ambasciate non hanno più degli ambasciatori che facevano prima di andare in pensione, venivano mandati lì, ma spesso giovani ambasciatori di prima nomina, con una grande attenzione al lato economico e alla diplomazia economica. Quindi sta cambiando anche il nostro approccio al continente. Sappiatelo e usatelo. Vedo che tra gli spettatori c'è la direttrice dell'ufficio ICE di Luanda, in Angola, c'è Accra. Veramente comincia a esserci una rete che si sta rinforzando e usatela. Grazie Bernard, ti ridò la parola, siamo più o meno stati nei tempi, più o meno.
Assolutamente sì, sei stato bravissimo nei tempi, grazie mille. E io ecco, prima di adesso passare alle conclusioni che sono affidate al dottor Roberto Lovato dell'agenzia ICE, vorrei un minuto dare la parola a Marco Ragusa dell'OICE che voleva dire e aggiungere una cosa. Quindi Marco, sei in linea, prego, lo schermo è tuo.
Sì, grazie Bernard. Sì, due cose al volo. La prima first one for Mr. Ayad. As OICE, we'd like to organize a business mission or web mission, I don't know, in Abidjan. We have to develop activities in a bilateral way, so Italy, Cote d'Ivoire. But we think that it can be a great occasion to organize a visit to the African Development Bank headquarters. So we will send you and to our executive direction to the bank our proposals and our programs. On that occasion, we can present our expertise, our companies, a selection of our companies, and receive a precise knowledge of the HDB programs pipelines. Ok, thank you Mr. Ayad. Seconda cosa, riprendo al volo quello che diceva il vicepresidente Carpaneto sul networking e sulle partnership. Naturalmente confermo che siamo, non posso far altro che dirlo, un punto di riferimento e catalizzatore naturalmente per le società di ingegneria associate e non associate, quindi è auspicabile che lo facciano. E poi non siamo soltanto un soggetto passivo, cioè raccogliamo gli degli spunti, ma al contrario prendiamo i trend, li immaginiamo, cerchiamo di anticiparli, e quello che racconteremo il 24 anche novembre, come diceva il vicepresidente Carpaneto, al rapporto estero, quello che avverrà nei prossimi anni, nei prossimi 2 anni, li incrociamo con altri dati e quindi poi sviluppiamo delle attività. Quindi siamo anche, volevo stressare l'elemento propositivo, lo facciamo con tutti i partner, in primis naturalmente l'agenzia ICE. Ti ridò la parola Bernard, grazie mille a tutti.
Grazie Marco Ragusa e grazie soprattutto ai nostri panelist, al studio Pietrangeli, a Team Engineering, a Massimo Zaurini e a IAD. E adesso, prima vi ricordo brevemente che dopo la fine del webinar vi chiediamo la cortesia di compilare il questionario di valutazione. E adesso passo la parola al dottor Roberto Lovato per le conclusioni. Prego, Lovato.
Grazie, grazie a tutti i partecipanti e ai relatori. Thank you very much to the panelists from African Development Bank. Credo che sia stata, prima di tutto mi scuso per il ritardo con cui sono riuscito a collegarmi al webinar dovuti ad altri impegni purtroppo, ma ho avuto modo di valutare quanto sia stata approfondita la trattazione delle opportunità offerte dall'African Development Bank e come sono stati forniti gli elementi essenziali per poter valutare le opportunità che le aziende italiane, di cui le aziende italiane possono approfittare su questo mercato. E quindi credo che poi anche l'esperienza diretta da parte delle aziende che già ci sono su questo mercato sia essenziale per fornire gli elementi di conoscenza per valutare tutti gli aspetti che sono necessari prendere in considerazione per affrontare questi mercati. Certamente ci sono delle peculiarità che sono specifiche per questo continente, per questi paesi. Abbiamo più volte sentito la cultura del paese è qualcosa di fondamentale da conoscere al fine di individuare quali possono essere gli elementi vincenti sui quali puntare per un'azienda che intenda collocarsi in questi mercati. Da questo punto di vista sicuramente l'esperienza di chi c'è già, l'esperienza quindi delle associazioni come OICE che organizzano anche delle missioni in questi paesi per individuare le opportunità che ci sono per prendere contatto con gli operatori locali sono un elemento fondamentale, così come la stampa specializzata di settore come Africa Affari che fornisce gli elementi e le informazioni per diciamo accompagnare le aziende in questa che viene comunque considerata ancora per un paese, per un'azienda italiana, un'avventura probabilmente in un continente come l'Africa. Comunque è un'avventura che vale la pena di essere tentata. Questo è l'importante, credo, che sia comunicato alle aziende italiane. E in questa avventura sicuramente al fianco delle aziende italiane, al servizio delle aziende italiane ci sono anche le istituzioni, sicuramente la rete delle ambasciate italiane, ma anche la rete dei nostri uffici che negli ultimi anni si è allargata, che conta di allargarsi ulteriormente, diciamo anche proprio nei riguardi della Banca Africana di Sviluppo. L'anno prossimo contiamo di strutturare un nostro desk informativo di contatto con la Banca Africana di Sviluppo in modo da poter fornire una stabile relazione di informazione per le aziende italiane per le attività di questa banca, e in merito a questo saremo ben lieti di fornire le informazioni a tutte le aziende quando spero entro il primo semestre dell'anno prossimo saremo in grado di strutturare questo desk. Ecco, Da questo punto di vista rinnovo, non voglio rubare più tempo, abbiamo avuto una mattinata intensa, ringrazio tutti i partecipanti, do appuntamento a tutti i partecipanti e OICE e Africa Affari per la collaborazione, d'altra parte diciamo ormai è una collaborazione molto collaudata che abbiamo tutta l'intenzione di proseguire. Non mi resta che ringraziare tutti per la partecipazione, sperando che possa essere veramente utile e fruttifera per tutte le aziende che hanno assistito, e vi do appuntamento alle nostre prossime occasioni. Grazie ancora a tutti. Grazie, arrivederci.
Bene, grazie. Thank you everybody.
Ciao Filippo.
Massimo, grazie, ciao.
Saluti anche da parte mia.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Simone.
Thank you very much, Ashraf.